First and foremost, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor unto Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Harakat Badash. I would also like to give a double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone who do rule well, that have taught me this truth. And I would also like to say a sincere shalom unto the hopeful elect, unto the scattered elect, unto the servants, the prophets, the brothers who are out there prophesying, laboring in this truth and in this doctrine. Unto you I say shalom. Intermingling with the tribes won't save you, okay? And this is really to those Argentinian Edomites, all right? Because there's a lot of, with this World Cup, it's a worldwide event, but there's a lot of truth coming out that was, to those that, are privy to this information, they probably already knew, but to, a lot of people that weren't up on, world politics and various cultures and anthropology of various different cultures, the world is finding out that Argentina is very, very racist, and it's due to the integration or the intermingling of the Edomites down there in South America within that integrated within Jake, all right, the Israelites down there, over 200 years ago. Okay, so I'm gonna bring out a few videos. It's gonna, briefly explain some history on what has taken place and the end results of it. Where a lot of these Jakes down there, they think they're Edomites. They think they're so-called white people. They want to be like white. They want to be like Esau. Okay, and we're at the last days where knowledge is being increased. All right, where it ain't just a black thing, because a lot of these videos I'm going to play, they say black people, black people, black people. No, these were Israelites that came to Central and South America. First of all, the Northern Kingdom was over here prior to the transatlantic slave trade, but they were Israelites of the Southern Kingdom that were brought over to Central and South America. All right, a lot of the what they call them, Afro-Brazilians, were Judites or Jakes from the Southern Kingdom that came over at the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. So let me get one scripture real quick, and then I'm gonna go back to this video, a few videos I have, and a lot of the videos they kind of say some of the same things, but it's very informative, and this knowledge has to be increasing these last days, as we need to us as Israelites need to wake up to who we are, to our heritage, and also at the same time expose this devil for what they've done and what they're doing. Okay, because you can see a lot of Edomites down there within Argentina. The president of Argentina is a small hat, and a lot of the various presidents of that country are even though they may have their bloodlines, they may have Latino or Spanish last names, their roots in their spirit goes back to Edomites that were in more than likely Spain and Portugal. All right, so let me grab this scripture real quick. This is Daniel chapter 12 and verse 4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. All right, that book was the scriptures. All right, and it was sealed from our people. We didn't have this knowledge and this understanding until these last days, until the Lord quickened us with his spirit, and you got all this knowledge coming out now. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Okay, of course, first and foremost, the knowledge of the scriptures, but also knowledge of history that ties our heritage to the scriptures and to these curses. Okay, because this is a curse that amongst our people that the Northern Kingdom. Well, the scripture says that I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna just get it, because this is showing you. This is clear, showing you the hatred, because a lot of our people are mingled amongst those so-called Argentinians down there, which would be the tribe of Asher. This is Deuteronomy 28 and verse 54. 54. Just passed it. So that man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother, and towards the wife of his bosom, and towards the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. Okay, let me read this in another translation. But that brother is talking about is your fellow Israelite brother. Okay, and it says your eye shall be evil. All right, and that tension has always really been there due to the devil um, dividing and conquering us. All right, the NIV is in the NIV it says, even the most gentle and sensitive man among you will have no compassion on his own brother or the wife he loves or his surviving children. Okay, so it's in when I'm gonna play these videos, but they try to make it a black thing and a white thing. No, it's we're not black. Okay, we're all one people, but the devil, all right, has divided us, and we're divided through these curses. All right, where we would look at another individual, not knowing that's our fellow brother, and hate them and show them hatred. Okay, and think that we're different, and so let me just play the few videos, and let me see, is that one? But I'm gonna play this one first because this guy's kind of long winded, but I'm gonna play some of his video because he does go into great depth of the history and the hatred, because he says at the beginning of the video, he says he's Brazilian and Argentinian, so what his father is either one or the other, but it reminds me of how who is it, Levi and Simeon are on that same island and they hate each other. All right, not knowing they're brothers, just like Argentina is next to Brazil, and the Argentinians hate the Brazilians because a lot of them are dark skinned. All right, what they could consider black, or what the average Jake would consider black. So let me play this, and I'm gonna get the other two videos also.
I love my heritage. I love our soccer, our traditions, the meat, the insane landscapes, and the culture. But loving a place means you don't look away when it's rotting from the inside. We have to call out the history, the government, and the deep-seated racism that everybody else in Latin America and the world sees, but we continuously deny. There's a major reason why a vast majority of Latin America and the world don't like us. Argentina is easily one of the most racist countries in the world. We are quite literally the Israel of Latin America. Argentina had one of the quietest but most violent genocides in African and indigenous history. Let's stop lying to ourselves. The white Argentina you see today was engineered. It did not just happen naturally. It was a calculated, state-sponsored project of erasure, built on the same foundations of displacement and violence and erasure as America or Israel. Before Europeans showed up, this land belonged to the Diaguita, the Guarani, the Mapuche, and dozens of other indigenous nations.
Those were all Israelite nations, all right? And then, like I said, Asher, Zebulon was mixed amongst those nations, but mainly Asher is comes from that area. But these were all Israelites, and they were all dark skinned. Okay, they were all they were our people were never that that lighter complexion that they appear today. But like I said, we were mingled and scattered amongst the nations. Hold on, real quick. One second. I just want to make sure. Excuse me, that's Naphtali. Naphtali, Asher, right on that border. But back to the lesson. We were mingled amongst these heathens. All right, and he's gonna explain it how, they basically immigrants from Spain and France. They all they migrated down to basically make Argentina white. All right.
And in the 18th and 19th centuries, African people were a massive part of our fabric. Enslaved Africans were brought here starting in the 1500s. By the early 1800s, black and mulatto residents made up a third of the population nationwide and up to 50% in some of the interior provinces. Where did they go? They didn't just vanish into thin air. They were systematically eliminated. During the Wars of Independence and the horrific War of the Triple Alliance, the state used Afro-Argentines as literal cannon fodder. They were pushed to the front lines to absorb bullets and die, decimating the male population. The black women who survived were forced to intermarry just to get by, accelerating the intentional disappearance of black identity. When the yellow fever epidemic hit Buenos Aires in 1871, the white elite packed their bags and fled to the wealthy suburbs. They left the poorest districts where the Afro-Argentine population was concentrated, quarantined, trapped, and left to die in overcrowded tenements. Out of the 14,000 people wiped out in a matter of months, the dead were disproportionately black. Then came the late 1800s, and President Domingo Sarmiento opened blanqueamiento, aka the whitening. The government literally subsidized the migration of over 6 million Europeans, mostly Italians and Spaniards, between the 1860s and 1960s to dilute the surviving black and indigenous populations. At the exact same time, they quite literally erased black and mulatto categories from the national census, reclassifying mixed people as white on paper. If you don't count them, they don't exist. That was the logic. And the obsession with whiteness didn't stop there. After World War II, the government opened its arms to some of the most horrific white supremacists in human history, becoming the primary destination for the Nazi rat lines. People like Adolf Eichmann and Joseph Mengele lived out their lives hiding in plain sight in Argentina. Because of this brutal discrimination, systemic marginalization, and racial erasure, countless Afro-Argentines fled, crossing borders into Uruguay and Brazil, just to find a place where black culture had a visible, established footprint, and they could breathe without being treated like ghosts or criminals. We see the legacy of...
So you see that the Northern Kingdom caught hell just like Jake. Like Jake caught hell here, how Gad caught hell here, where they were just basically like the Indian Removal Act. This is similar to what happened to Jake down there. All right, and a lot of this history that hasn't been told, all right, it was hidden, is coming out now. All right, and it's all through the Spirit, because the Lord wants, this is the time of the great revealing, where the Lord wants these historical facts to be revealed. Okay.
Of this history every single day. We see it when our soccer fans and players yell vile, subhuman racist chants at Afro-Brazilian, African, and French players. We see it in the casual, ugly racism Argentinos export when they travel to Mexico, Bolivia, or Brazil. And we see it in our politics. Argentina also voted against a UN resolution declaring the transatlantic slave trade the greatest crime against humanity. Only 3 countries in the entire world voted against it: the US, Israel, and Argentina. The only country in South America to do so. Think about how deeply shameful that is. To every Afro-Latino, Black, and Indigenous soul watching this video, the pain you carry is not up for debate. For centuries, the system has tried to gaslight you into believing your history didn't happen, or that your ongoing struggle is just laziness or lack of merit. The trauma of having your ancestors systematically erased from the history books while the world praises the European elegance of the country that buried them is a deep psychological wound. Even today, the system demands that you mutilate your identity just to be tolerated. When you're told to straighten your hair or cut off your locks just to look professional or clean for a job, that is the modern corporate ghost of blanqueamiento. It is an absolute disrespect and insult to your humanity to normalize the idea that the features you were born with are inherently unprofessional, sloppy, or lesser than.
All right, so I'm going to play this one right here. It goes into some history about the, so-called black population.
Was black. Today, it's less than 0.100. A third of Argentina's population was black. Today, it's less than 0.4%. What happened? In the 1500s, Spain shipped enslaved Africans to Buenos Aires.
All right, so here we go again. Jen Powell, once again.
So
in 1800.
So during the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, one of the biggest slave ports was in Seville, Spain. All right, and they said that where back in the 1500s during the slave trade. I just want to make that point out there. The elder Malcolm from Chicago, GMS Chicago, he always brings that point out. Seville, Spain, was one of the first major slave ports from during the transatlantic slave trade, and like it just said, they brought slaves over to Argentina. All right, so that shows you that Esau had their imprint down there a long time ago. Okay, and it was just only a matter of time before they, what Lex going to say it, they made all of Argentina so-called white, even though we know our people are still mingled amongst them and then look like them, but their spirit goes back to an Israelite.
A third of Argentina's population was black. Today, it's less than 0.4%. What happened? In the 1500s, Spain shipped enslaved Africans to Buenos Aires. They built the colony's economy. But in 1868, a new president took office, Sarmiento, who openly believed in white racial superiority.
And I looked up his Wiki page. I guess he was born in Brazil, but you gotta believe that either he was paid by, all right, he was bought and paid for by the small hats, or he was small hat himself to have that mentality. All right, to be from there, to have that mentality. All right, to that so-called white superiority.
Under him, Afro-Argentines were forced into the army and sent to the deadliest front lines of the Paraguayan War. Thousands died. During a yellow fever outbreak, they were confined to the worst, most disease-ridden neighborhoods with almost no medical care. Then the government opened the door to millions of European immigrants, reshaping the population almost overnight. After 1887, the census simply stopped asking about race. The record of a black Argentina was quietly wiped clean. Even today, many Argentines believe their country never had slavery at all. But the truth? These people didn't disappear.
No, they didn't disappear. All of them is probably on that soccer field right now, representing Argentina, and they think that their race is so called. They think they're Edomites. They think they're so called white. All right, I'll play this Jake on TikTok right here.
And if you know how to read it, it's also the most comprehensive map where slavery and colonialism actually went. Have you realized that there's no black players on the Argentinian team? Well, there's a reason for that. Take a look at France. 21 of their 26 players are of African descent. In England, 15. The Netherlands, 14. Belgium and Germany, 9 each. 12 of America's 26 players are black, the product of one of the most successful settler colonial projects to enslave black people. Brazil's entire starting lineup descends from the 4.9 million Africans who were enslaved and brought to that country. The largest
in our history is it goes deeper than the west coast of Africa. All right, that's what a lot of Jakes that don't understand. They just think Africa, Africa, Africa. You got to ask a question: Where were these people, this great people, before they dwelt in Africa? All right, they actually came from Israel. All right, and of course after 70 A.D., that's when the great the great diaspora, we were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Some it's Jakes in Europe, it's Jakes in parts of Asia, but the majority of the tribe of Judah came over to the west coast of Africa. All right, that's just I did to throw that out there because that's Jake doesn't a lot of times our people don't have the ability to critically think and think like, okay, we were just always in Africa. No, we weren't always in Africa. All right, and that was a lie that was told in the history books and told in the schools that we always believed growing up. All right, so let me go back to this video.
Destination of the entire transatlantic slave trade. Haiti was at the World Cup, a nation whose people were forced to pay France reparations for their own freedom for 122 years, and Curacao, an island of 150,000 people, qualified for the first time in history. That island was a regional hub of the Dutch Atlantic slave trade. Most of their squad grew up in the Netherlands, the colonizing country, because that's where the opportunity was. That's not diversity, it's displacement on a pitch. Every team tells you which empire moved which people and where they ended up. You can reverse engineer the entire history of Western colonialism just from the squad list. But then there's Argentina. Argentina doesn't have a single black player on their squad. People treat that like it's a coincidence, and it's not. It's the outcome of a deliberate government-executed program to erase black people from the nation. In 1800, black people were more than 1/3 of Argentina's population, 69,000 people out of 187,000. In less than a century, that number was so decimated that by 1875, the Argentine government didn't even bother counting.
It's like I said, it's like the Indian Removal Act that was here with the tribes of Reuben and Gad happened to Jake down there in Argentina. All right, Edomites got in charge and they wanted to do away with Jake completely and their history. All right, but I think I want to say in this video, another video I watched, a lot of their a lot of things that they take pride in their culture, like their dancing, like their food, that came from Jake. Okay.
Descendants in the national census. Think about how intentional that has to be. President Domingo Faustino Sarmiento, who served from 1868 to 1874, was a fervent white supremacist who openly wrote about his desire to eliminate black people from Argentina. He segregated black communities from white ones, denied them infrastructure and health care, and sent them to die on the front lines of military campaigns. He imprisoned them on fabricated charges. He executed them. While he was doing all of that, Argentina's 1853 constitution was actively recruiting white European immigrants from Italy and Spain to replace them. Erase black people, import white ones, call yourself a European nation in South America. That was the architecture of what Argentina was trying to do. And what makes it more sinister is they stole the culture before they buried and killed black people. Shocker, right? Tango, the dance that we all know from Dancing with the Stars, which is Argentina's most celebrated export, comes from black people. The thing that they sell to the world as the soul of their identity was created by enslaved Africans. The word tango itself comes from the gathering places where black Argentines met and danced. The candombe, the African drum tradition brought over through the slave trade, is the rhythmic foundation of the entire genre. Black composers wrote the first tangos, black musicians built the form, and then once it became popular, once Paris fell in love with it, Argentina's ruling class stripped it of its black origins, sanitized it for high society ballrooms, and declared it a symbol of European sophistication. They killed the people, they kept the music, then they claimed the music was never black. A former president of Argentina, Carlos Menem, once said publicly, in Argentina, blacks do not exist. That is a Brazilian problem. A sitting head of state said that out loud. So when you look at the World Cup and you see Argentina is the only squad out of 48 with no black players, understand what you are actually seeing.
So that's all I want to play from that. But you see, and the thing about it is these politicians or whatever in Argentina, they don't realize the reason their country is great is because of the Israelites that were there. The ones that were there, that left their seed there, that and the ones that are, like I said, that are there now. That's what makes your country great. All right, not your Edomite, so-called Edomite superiority. Okay, but the Lord is going to sift. The Lord is going to do a great sifting. All right, where the Jakes that are amongst them that do believe, the Lord is going to, sift them out of there. All right, the Lord is Jakes down in Argentina that's going to get delivered. While a lot of them that's down there that, once they hear about the truth, or the truth, because everybody heard about the truth, because we got brothers that speak in Spanish, so it ain't like they don't know about the truth. But once they hear the truth, they gonna say, "Oh well, I'm Argentina. Can I get saved?" But the angels are going to know who has a Yahawah, that mark of exemption. So they could play like they believe, but the Lord is going to know those who has mixed their seed, or not mixed their seed, but who's an Israelite and who's not an Israelite. The angels are going to know. Okay, so you Edomites ain't no way to escape your judgment. All right, but I want to go back to Deuteronomy 28 and get the curse. That's verse 64. It says, "The Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even to the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even stone and wood." All right, and I'm pretty sure Catholicism is heavy down there, but in Argentina. But it said the Lord said He would scatter us among all people. So it's going to be Israelites that look like so-called white people. It's going to be Israelites that look like so-called Spaniards or Frenchmen or whatever. Okay, there's a lot of Israelites down there in Argentina, but there's a lot of Edomites too that's mingled amongst them. Okay, let me grab this real quick. Amos chapter 9 and verse 9. "For lo, I will command and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like as corn is sifted in a sieve, yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth." All right, so the Lord is going to do a great sifting. The Lord knows who's His and who's not. Okay, and it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of imposters down there. All right, that the devil has tried to. I'm going to get the parable of the tares and the wheats. All right, try to mingle amongst the Israelites down there and take their culture, pretty much. All right, and that's not even our culture. Our culture goes back to the scriptures. Okay, but Jake is the former of all things. Jake is the salt of the earth. So yes, we do things, and these various nations, they gravitate to it. All right, like the Jake was going into the dancing. Okay, the music, they gravitate to Jake and then try to take it as their own. All right, this is Matthew chapter 13. I'm gonna read both of them. I'm gonna start at verse 24. "Another parable He put forth," is Yahawashi speaking, "among them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which soweth good seed in his field. And while men slept, the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blades blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the household came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence have it tares? And he said unto him, An enemy have done this. The servants said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? And he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in a bundle, and burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. All right, the wheat, all right, represents the elect, but the parable, in the parable, the tares and the wheat look alike. All right, so you may have chocolate covered Edomites. All right, but you may have Jake down there that look like Edomites or look like Spaniards or so-called European, but they're actually Jakes. Okay, let me go down to I'm gonna jump down to where is it? Oh, verse 37. Oh, it's going to explain it. Then Yahawashi sent to the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. Okay, so we're at the end of the world. All right, and when that time comes, the angels are going to reap the good seed. All right, which are the Israelites, which are really the Israelites as a nation, but the elect. That's who the angels are going to know, who has that Yahawah, the mark of exemption. Okay, and deliver and protect, then deliver. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offered, and them which do iniquity. All right, so it's a lot of truth that's coming out in these last days. All right, and really the truth of the matter is that this devil is being revealed. Okay, and at all stages, in all his wickedness. All right, not just slavery. Slavery is one thing, but all the wickedness they've done throughout their whole existence, especially in this captivity where Jake from the 1400s, all the way to this present day. All right, let me see. I got one last scripture I want to grab. Oh yeah, yep. Like I said, Esau is he's getting exposed. All right, real quick. Second Thessalonians 2:8. And then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. All right, the wicked is capitalized. So the wicked is the actual people, and they're being revealed. Okay, for all their wickedness. All right, and the World Cup brought a lot of obviously attention to soccer, football. All right, but it also brought attention to the wickedness that he has done down there amongst the tribes in Argentina. Okay, how they pretty much basically performed almost a genocide on the so-called Negroes down there in Argentina. All right, but it's still Jake. It's Jake is mingled amongst the tribe, so you'll never kill off Jake. You'll never kill off the nation of Israel is like as the sand of the sea. So we can't be killed off. But don't think Esau hasn't tried. And in these last days he's going to try even harder. All right. So Lord willing, this lesson was Salaki if I was all over the place, but Lord willing, this lesson was edifying unto the hopeful elect. And I want to give all praise, glory, and honor unto Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Harakakwadash. Shalom.